From screen printing T-shirts as a 12-year-old to leading businesses, serving as Mayor of Dubbo and even help raising over $1 million for charity, this man's entrepreneurial spirit and commitment to community have shaped much of what we see in Dubbo today. Mathew Dickerson has loved his journey filled with innovation, civic duty and an uncanny ability to spot opportunities. Joining us today is someone who has never been afraid to take on a challenge or reinvent himself. Let's talk about how one local entrepreneur's vision has shaped a town and a region. Good morning to you, Mathew.
Gee, a bit over the top there, Cam.
You think so?
Thanks very much. It sounds like a great... I was wondering who you were talking about then for a while as you're going in.
Look at that.
Very kind of you, very kind.
Excellent. Now, look, Mathew, you started your first business venture at just 12 years old. What inspired you to dive into the world of entrepreneurship so early?
Well, it's one of those things, and you mentioned it there about opportunity. And back in school, I've got to give a rap here to Janet Williams, who owned a business in Dubbo for a number of years, but when we were at school, she was our art teacher. And we did screen printing at school, and I thought that was fine.
St John's, right?
St John's,
yes.
Yeah, at St John's School. And so we're in year 7, and it was the good old-fashioned, you'd cut out the shapes and you'd screen print, and I thought this is all good fun. And at the time, I was racing BMX bikes. BMX was all the go. Like, everyone was out there being BMX bandits and having a great time.
Thank you, Nicole Kidman. Absolutely. Remember it well?
Right. Yeah, exactly. There was never any girls that were racing BMX that looked like Nicole Kidman when I was around, though. And so we were doing that, and I couldn't afford some of these cool T-shirts that are out there. And I thought, hold on, I've got this new skill now. I've got this screen printing skill. So I went and catted a few shapes and designs and screen printed some T-shirts. And then when I was out riding bikes, people said, pretty cool T-shirt on here. Oh, where'd you get that from? I went,
that's cool.
Oh, actually, I made it. No. And so, maybe there's an opportunity here. So it's one of those things you don't always know what you're going to do.
That's
right.
And
then sometimes you see an opportunity. And so if you can be nimble, if you can be agile, if you can react to things as they happen, then you can do things. So that all came about because people liked the designs. I started screen printing a few.
Perfect.
They went, I buy those. I went, hold on, I can make a bit of money out of this. It sounds pretty good. So I started getting a bit of pocket money out of that. And eventually I found out that every sporting team, casual sporting team, touch footy, indoor cricket, you name it, there were people that needed T-shirt designs.
Absolutely, yes.
And I had very few overheads because I was doing this out of mum and dad's house, so I could do these T-shirts fairly cheap. And so I ended up doing a whole range of T-shirts for different sporting teams as I went through school, and that continued through university. I think just about, I was at St John's College. I couldn't get the St John's out of my blood at Sydney University, so there were 7 colleges on campus. So the word got around that I did screen printing, so I think I ended up doing every sporting team across all the colleges. So,
so your first shop was from your mum and dad's place?
Yeah. So the bedroom at home was my screen printing. There'd be sometimes you'd walk into my bedroom and there'd be T-shirts hung out everywhere while they were drying, and then with my dad, I built my own drying machine. So then I took over a bit of the we used to call the playroom where the ping pong table was. So I took over that and had this machine on the ping pong table that used to do the heat drying of all the T-shirts. So it was good
fun. Very creative indeed. Now, your work has spanned over several industries, from electronics to telecommunications to local government. How do you identify new opportunities, and what has driven your business growth?
Well, I think it is really, I think it's about looking out for things. So if we go to electronics, for example, I've always had a love of computers. We got some Apple II Pluses at school at St John's, and so I ended up doing all the school database, and so all the students that were on the database were ones in a database that I'd worked on and went through. So I love computers.
Wow.
And then when we got to the stage of when I went to uni and I came back and I didn't know what I was really going to do, and there were a few things that started happening at the time that, there's an opportunity. And we had aggregation that happened. So you may remember, you're a bit younger than I am, but on the 1st of January 1990 was the day that we got aggregation turned on. So before that, we had two TV channels, ABC.
And Midstate Television.
Yeah, Midstate.
Remember it well.
And even in the early days, it was called CBN8 CWN6. What a crazy name for a TV station. But so that was it. We had one commercial and one ABC, or the ABC, of course. And then aggregation came along, and suddenly we had the 3 commercial channels and ABC, and SBS was there as well.
Correct.
But to get those channels, they were broadcast on UHF from Mugger Hill, but the other channels were broadcast on VHF from Mount St Cruac in Coonabarabran.
Wow.
So you had to change your antenna and change where it was pointed. And I went, I reckon there's an opportunity there. So I started advertising TV antenna installations and basically started running a business that was doing that. So I was kind of tied up with electronics, but then it was installing a TV antenna, because every house in Dubbo, so I kind of saw this opportunity, every house in Dubbo has got to have a new TV antenna. Well, someone's got to do that work, and there were TV antenna businesses, but I kind of thought, well, they're not going to mind me coming along because they've got too much work on their hands, so I can do that. And that started to spread out across the region. I remember doing trips out to places like Nyngan, spending a week at a time out in Nyngan doing the same sort of thing, putting up TV antennas, and they were a bit harder because you had 50-foot towers you'd have to put up out there to actually pick up TV signal. So that was, again, that sort of opportunity. And then on the back of that, 26th of July 1990, approximately, was the day that the mobile phone network was turned on in Dubbo. And it was actually a mate of mine, Darryl Coxon. I went to school with Darryl. His dad had Graham Coxon Holden here. Yeah. And he said to me one day, months before that day, he said, have you heard about these mobile phones? And I went, yeah, a bit yuppie, aren't they? Kind of, the only people that had mobile phones were yuppies. And he said, they're turning them on in Dubbo. I went, oh, really? Oh, maybe I could start selling mobile phones. And, of course, so I connected officially the very first mobile phone in Dubbo I did the connection for. But back in those days, most of the phones were car phones. So you had to install them in a car, and you'd see tradies, because everyone thought that yuppies would buy them, but tradies were the number one purchaser, because tradies, their office was their car. Yeah, of course. So suddenly you're out in this sort of building environment, and it was hilarious because you'd be out there, I'd be doing these installs out in these building environments, and someone's horn would start going off because you'd have them hooked up to the horn. And there'd be all these tradies running around from their job site whose horn was blowing because that was their phone ringing. So it was a long way before we got to carrying them in our pockets. So you went from car phones to bag phones. People carried them around, and they were very sophisticated, carrying around what looked like a handbag. These very big, tough tradies walking into pubs carrying their handbag around. So again, it was just spotting those opportunities, spotting what do people want out there, rather than thinking about it for a long time, rather than going and getting a focus group. It's one of those things where you go, do I think this will work? You play it through in your mind, and then because I've been a small business, you can just jump on those opportunities and away you go. Wow, that is very impressive and somewhat inspirational indeed, I must say. Now, Matthew, we're just going to take a little break, and we're going to let's play some music here on ABC Western Plains and Central West, and a bit of Simple Minds and Alive and Kicking. There they are. That is Simple Minds, of course, with Alive and Kicking here on ABC Western Plains and Central West. I'm Cam Hughes, and we are talking to local entrepreneur Mathew Dickerson. So how are you hanging in there, Matt? Well, I'm a bit concerned that you chose Simple Minds as a song halfway through your interview, Cam. Was that deliberate with Simple Minds in there? Were you thinking Simple Minds when you're thinking of me? No, I blame the producer. I had nothing to do with that whatsoever. I'll take it out on Nick then. So. Okay, excellent. Now, just to jump back into it, balancing business, family and community service seems like a juggling act, of course. So how did you manage it, especially during your time as mayor and when raising not one, not two, not three, but 4 children? Wow. Please. Well, even when I first went into local government, I don't know what I was thinking. I'd built up a few businesses, got to the stage where we had 6 businesses. One of them had a branch in Dubbo and Orange and Bathurst, so there was a little bit of travel, although I had good staff in Orange and Bathurst. We had our 4th child in 2003, so at that stage we had 4 children, aged 6, 4, 2 and 0. Gosh. Wow. And doing that, I also was involved. Tony Lawler was the chairman of a committee that we put together to do the very first Relay for Life. Yes. And so as part of that, I said, look, we should get a Guinness World Record. Why not? So they gave me that little project. So we got a Guinness World Record for a novelty record, just the most number of heads being shaved at the same time or something along those lines. But it was a fundraiser. That was about 2002. So there was a lot happening. And then I said, you know what? I think I should run for council. Now, my wife was an absolutely wonderful person. 30 years marriage we celebrated just a month ago. Oh, congratulations. Thank you. And, or commiserations to my wife maybe, but she is not only encouraging, but she just takes care of so many things behind the scenes for me that allows me to go and do these things. So I don't know why she didn't say to me, you're crazy. What were you thinking when you said, let's go and have me stand for council? But with all that happening in 2003, I went, I'm a bit frustrated with what's happening on council. Individually, I knew many of the councillors, and they were all great people individually, but for whatever reason, when they came together as a council, it just didn't seem to really be working. And this was my city. I was very passionate about Dubbo, so I wanted to make sure it went as well as possible. So I went, you know what, I might as well just stand for council, because you do silly things like that when you're young and silly. So stood for council. 2004, beginning of 2004 was the election, and was lucky enough to be elected. So I kind of started that council journey while juggling all those other things. But again, I think it's one of those things, there's a couple of things, if you've got passion for things, you'll find time to do it, whatever that passion is, whether that passion be local government or community or music or whatever, you'll find time to do that passion. Of course, yeah. And that's one part of it. Also, having a very strong group of people around you that help you, not just my wife, my family. I grew up with 8 kids, so I was the youngest of 8, so I can always lean on my older siblings.
Yeah, right, of course.
Yeah, so I always get some help from those, and just a group of friends around Dubbo. I went to school with those, and still people I went to school with. One of my best friends from year 2 or year 3 was best man at my wedding, that sort of stuff. Just having that great group of people around you, maybe I lean on them too much, maybe I've gone too far with how much help I've had from them, but it's just been, I suppose, a way to do things by having so many people around you.
That is awesome. That is great. Really inspiring. Now, even after stepping away from politics, what entrepreneurial instincts kicked back in, like recently?
Yeah, look, it is one of those things that I'm still involved in council, obviously not mayor anymore. Mm-hmm. And one of those things was my wife actually said to me, well, you're not mayor anymore, so we can go and do some of these things we've been putting off. And my wife loves to travel, so we started booking a few various trips, which I've still tried to juggle those trips around, but I just don't know that was me, just travelling around the world and relaxing on beaches. My wife would love nothing more than to sit on a beach and read a book, and I think that's a little bit too tedious for me. So I thought maybe there's an opportunity for me. I'm not the mayor anymore, but how can I use my skills and knowledge and see what else I can do? So I actually reached out to Telstra. We've got one business that we have, a telco shop, and said, I think I want to go and open up some new shops and some new towns. And they said, well, actually, we've got a few that we're happy for you to buy off us. So I'm actually going to open up and expand our business out to Mudgee and Narrabri and Armidale.
Wow.
And that's great for those communities. Narrabri in particular, when I spoke to the mayor up there and said what I was doing, they were concerned, because Narrabri is only a small community, they were concerned that maybe at some stage they wouldn't have a local presence from a telco in the community. So having someone come along who they had some confidence in and basically know that it's going to be a long-term future there, I'm not going to go and outlay this money and do all this work to then close it down in 6 months' time. So in those communities, I think that to me is a bit of confidence in those. But I also think that a small business like ours is probably better than maybe a large multinational to be able to, I suppose, service regional communities. I think I understand regional communities, and just being a bit more flexible and agile, you can probably deliver better services to those smaller communities. So don't know if it's a good idea. Talk to me in 6 months' time, Cam. Tell me if it's a good idea, because maybe the sitting on a beach reading a book is not such a bad idea, but I just thought that's not me yet. I've got a little bit of time up my sleeve, hopefully, on this earth, so might as well make some productive use of it. But it's also good to be able to get back in. I'm a member of Rotary, but I haven't been a great member of Rotary over the years.
Gotcha.
I'm going to attend lots of meetings because I've been busy with things like council, but maybe a bit more time to do some things in Rotary. And we've got Tour to Orock coming up again, which is a bike ride I started back in 2013. You mentioned in the intro. That's raised over $1 million so far from Macquarie Homestay. So maybe an opportunity to do a few more of those things. Mm-hmm. We've got a great chairman of Tour to Orock now, Ben O'Brien's doing a great job there, so I have no intention of taking over there, but certainly being able to help out on that. So if you feel like you're contributing to the community in a whole range of different ways, whether it be business or whether it be charity, then I hope I've got a few more days left in me to be able to do a few of those things as well.
Oh, well done. Good stuff. Now, during your tenure as mayor, we've spoken about, you focused heavily on regional development. So what are the most significant changes you saw during that time that helped our little Dubbo grow to what it is now?
I think collaboration. There's some areas where you can collaborate, and back when I was first mayor, there were 152 councils. We had an amalgamation, so we've got less than that now, but 152 councils. And sometimes when I'd be at a conference or at an event, you'd see people very parochial about their little patch. And, don't go and do that over in Orange or Bathurst because we're in Dubbo.
Yes.
And I thought about it, I thought, you're really not like a business where you're trying to compete for buy a car off me or buy a car off someone in the next town. You're really competing to make sure you keep your residents, but you can probably work together. So Evo Cities was a concept that started before I just got into being the mayor. And that was a collaboration with 7 cities, and it was going along okay, but it really didn't involve the political side. It was just a bit of advertising about, hey, look at coming to a regional location. And I said, well, I think there's a better opportunity for the elected representatives to get involved here. So they elected me as the first chair of Evo Cities that was from the elected group, and just bringing that together. So one of the ideas I came up with was a mountain bike race that was a series that went through every one of the 7 Evo cities. So I created the richest mountain bike race in the nation, got a few corporate sponsors on board, And that series ran for 2 years until amalgamation kind of put a stop to it. But that was a great way, because what happened was we had people from Sydney who were competing in these various races. There was good prize money on offer. We'd have $100,000 in prize money.
Wow.
So suddenly they were visiting Wagga, they were visiting Dubbo, they were visiting Tamworth, they were visiting the 7 Evo cities as part of that series. And I remember talking to some of those competitors, because I went around to each of the races, and they said, wow, I've never been to Dubbo or Wagga or Orange, wherever it was, never been here before. Wow, it's a bit different to what I thought. It's really nice. It's got a supermarket. I can buy 2-minute noodles. I mean, some of the things you hear from people in Sydney are quite incredible in terms of their impression of regional location. So that was certainly, again, one way to bring together a different group of cities. And the other group we had was a group called OROC, Orana Region of Councils, and that was the 12 councils out around the Western region. And so from that perspective, trying to make sure that stayed together and collaborated together, I think it was important as well. So Dubbo wasn't an island. Dubbo was a very important cog in these other bigger pieces, and I think that was one thing that I was very proud of at the end, that managed to get that group together, those collaborations. Then we also introduced the CEO ASX 200 series. So I invited along CEOs from ASX 200 companies to talk at a Chamber of Commerce, very good relationship with the Chamber, talk at a breakfast there. And I know people from other locations said, how did you get so-and-so CEO of that business? So we had some incredible CEOs along. I said, just ask them. Sometimes you ask people crazy questions and they say yes, as long as you're happy to get a no. And I think that's the important thing. Don't be too offended if you get a no. You get a yes, happy days.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, honestly, Mathew, really great talking to you again today, and thank you for coming in, and I wish you all the best rather for future endeavours, because clearly you've been possessed and graced with the Midas touch. So thank you for all your contributions locally. And yes, so folks, that's Mathew Dickerson, local entrepreneur. And in the meantime, before we go over to gardening in the next half hour, we're going to hit a little bit of You're So Vain by Carly Simon here on ABC Western Plains and Central West. So Mathew, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Cam. Good luck with your gig.
Cheers.